This is the E-commerce Edge podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I have a fantastic guest lined up for you today, and I'll try not to butcher his name. Simen SVALE from Sanity IO. He is the CTO and co-founder, so welcome, Simen.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. It's so cool to have you here along with me for the ride today. And you're from the Nordic region. You're in Oslo, and you've got the Viking look going on today. So you're living up to the expectation of the Nordic region, right?
For sure, that's my personal brand. The beard, the long hair, the metal look. Yeah, I love that.
I love it too. No, it's very distinctive. No one could ever forget you. So that's amazing. Listen, we're going to chat about Sanity and talk about what it is and how it came to be and the background and all that sort of stuff. But before we get into that, why don't you give me the elevator pitch, the short story of how you even came to be in this business? You, at least going by what's on the tin, you look like a serial entrepreneur. You've been a founder and a partner in multiple companies along the way. But what drew you into, I wouldn't say specifically into e-commerce, because Sanity is not an e-commerce platform, but it's a headless CMS, but oftentimes headless CMSs are used in e-commerce context. It's used in brand context. It's used in high performance web application context. That's where headless really shines. And there's Contentful. There's a million different CMSs out there. There's a million different e-commerce platforms out there. There's a million different commerce enablement technologies out there. What drew you into this industry to begin with? What excited you about it?
Yeah, it was pure anger, actually. We used to be this small agency, and we were really successful. We had amazing customers. Like, we had MIT making almost like art for them, like beautiful websites. We worked for OMA, a hugely famous Dutch international architecture agency. So we were living the dream in terms of what we wanted to be doing. But the frustration was that we constantly kept coming up with what we felt were like super innovative user experiences, like super beautiful things we could know how to build in like the web browser, but there was no system where we could give that to a team. So that would be very technical, and we would have to do it completely automated if we wanted to do that. Of course, at this point, I think Contentful was a thing, HighGraph was a thing, and we felt that they were kind of putting an API on WordPress, our perception. Like, we wanted something that was, from a programmer's point of view, we were making reusable, strict content that was like powerful in terms of a data modeling perspective, that was then possible to give to a creative team to manage, and then manage these innovative experiences. And then we built that as an internal tool. And then our customers told us, like, you should not be working for us. Should be your thing. You should be building this product because it's better than anything we can buy.
Wow. What a journey. So this is yet another case, and we see this quite often in the tech space. Someone is eating their own dog food, scratching their own itch. They're building some internal tooling, similar to in really taking the Amazon model, taking what is starts out as a cost center or an internal tool set, and then commercializing that, spinning it out, and turning it into a profit center, or turning it into something that has commercial value outside of an internal tool set. AWS was that for them. It was an internal tool set, and then they externalized it.
Now it's their business.
And it's not, and now it's one of the most profitable parts of their entire company. And you did something similar. You scratched an itch. You developed something that was useful inside to bring efficiency to the services you were delivering to their customers, and it was an enablement technology for your customers to where they didn't have to come back to you over and over again every single time they wanted to change something in their website. It was an empowerment tool for your customers to self-serve in many respects once you did the initial build.
It's very true, but also a frustration that we had with these tools, and still have if we hadn't created Sanity, is that if you are ambitious about the experience that you want to provide to your customers, you have some developers, you have some designers. These tools that we have then given, they are in a sense like very often now one size fits no one. They are out of the box, and I can't really change them. And we are, by definition, we have developers and designers on that team. So we said we want a tool where we can invest, like investing in that experience is investing in, of course, the rendering the thing, like the beautiful e-commerce experience or the amazing kind of shopping catalog or the fantastic campaign. But it's also about investing in how that content comes onto that page. Like, how is the team going to work? What are they going to create? How is it going to be reusable? How can we automate some of the processes? We wanted to be able to invest in that too. And Sanity is that kind of, and that's the big differentiator. I feel that Sanity is this kind of set of building blocks. You can use it as a pure headless CMS. You can just set it up and define your content models and off you go. That's fine. Now you're on a path to something bigger. But like in reality, when you're thinking strategically, when you are now taking all of your efforts and you are building this kind of system for your team, this is when it really shines. And that's the thing that's really my passion, is like thinking in terms of holistically about an experience. How are we going to create it physically or digitally, and then how are we going to create the processes that are going to power that for the team and for kind of the systems around it, the automations that we need.
Wow. And for the audience members who may not know what a headless CMS is, they may not know what this whole headless idea is, or composable, or those of us that work in the industry, obviously we hear this term almost every single day, but for people who maybe aren't as familiar with what a headless CMS is and does, let's go down that rabbit hole for just a minute here, because I think that there will be people in the audience who are listening who are going, what does a headless...
Yeah, maybe even you think you know what it is, but you actually don't, right? Yeah, sometimes it's unclear. Yeah. I think
exactly. So you start there. You give us the basics of what a headless CMS is and what it's intended to be and do.
Do you think we can do that as a story? Because I would love to take a use case, because as you said, we weren't really setting out to be an e-commerce platform, but it's a huge part of our business right now. And it was an inverse thing. We were discovered by e-commerce very early on, as we were, I think we were just 10, 15 people. RBI, the mothership company of Burger King and Popeyes and these huge kind of fast food brands, got in touch with us because they've seen us at a conference. And they were struggling with, of course, they had like their logistical systems, their ERP systems. They had, of course, a data-driven pipeline to run their menus and everything, which was very powerful, but it required very skilled people. And then the content, of course, was done in some very informal system like WordPress or something that didn't talk to those data systems. Headless just means thinking of content as data, and thinking of data in a sense as content. And what does that mean? It means that even though something, in one sense, on the internet, everything is the database, right? Like it's always true at the end of the day, everything is the database. Of course, a headless CMS is also just a database. But what makes it content is that it's really good at, of course, images and video, but it's also that it's shaped for people who think in terms of content, that their workflows are for creative people, for PR people, for communicators, marketers, that kind of group of people who are not necessarily thinking. They are not thinking in terms of data. They are thinking in terms of products, in terms of storytelling, in terms of pitches. Our job is to take that work and capture it in a way that becomes pure data at the heart of the system in the database. It's captured as reusable data. And what's the point of that? The point of that is automation and reusability. So now you can take that content, and for Burger King, that was their menus. They wanted to be able to take all of that complicated data and connect that to their PR teams, so that they could make a menu. Or if there was a campaign, let's say there's Deadpool movie coming out and they wanted to have a like short-lived menu, they could pull that together, and it didn't have to involve kind of logistics engineers to do that. There's no ERP specialists. It was like a pure marketing concerns. Then it ends up as data. And now the teams around the company are now, I don't know if they do this specifically right now anymore. That was their initial use case. They are using it all over the place. But what they then can do is then build automation. So let's say I deploy a new menu. Now one system that maybe talks to DoorDash will now pick that up and will shape that for DoorDash and put that into DoorDash, the partnership channel. Another system which maybe works with in-store kiosks will shape that data for these in-store kiosks and ship that into that channel. And in that way, you have one source of truth shipped into every channel, and most of that is invisible work that is just happening without a team. I think that do you feel that covers it? And then
Yeah,
it's just a content system with an API.
absolutely. And where I think some people will get confused or where they will go astray when they think of a headless CMS, they will say to themselves, didn't you just describe a PIM system? Didn't you just describe something like
Yeah.
in Riversand, a Kenio, some kind of product information management system that can hold structured and unstructured data, a DAM, an MDM system? Didn't you just really describe a PIM? And I think that is perhaps undervaluing and underselling what a great headless CMS is and can do. I think that it allows for so much more control over not just the content and the data itself, but how it will be displayed, how it will be presented stylistically. Because as you rightly point out, usually people that are working in a headless CMS, they are creatives. So they're marketers, they're copywriters, they're people that have a creative bent, and oftentimes they are creating not just strict structured data, product attributes, etc. They are also now writing things like romance copy. They are thinking about how do we want to take sometimes the raw material that comes out of a PIM system that is very just, here are the actual structures of data and how they relate to each other, how attributes between parent and child products relate to each other and the variants, how data rolls up and rolls down across those variants, how attributes relate to one another. It's very technical. Usually a PIM system is highly technical in nature, and it's really designed to be able to hold attributes that are context or channel specific. That is not the design layer. That is not the creative layer. That is the pure data layer usually. And oftentimes what I see architecturally in our world is that the PIM system will oftentimes be integrated with a headless CMS or the CMS, whether it's headless or otherwise. And then the CMS itself is where the stylistic touches are made, the layout touches are made, the design touches are made, where the creatives really set about taking this data and weaving it into a contextualized story. That's where that piece of work happens. So we have this raw, ugly data that's really important, but it doesn't tell a story in its raw form. It needs to be styled. It needs to be laid out. It needs to be contextualized. And that feels to me like what a headless CMS allows brands to do.
Yes, I think that's a great point, and thank you for clarifying that. You're more into the mental space of our audience right now, and I appreciate that. I think a lot of people actually use Sanity as a PIM as well because of that. It kind of converges, right? Because these hard, raw, kind of strict data, like this is the hydraulic brake for the XYZ Volvo, and it's compatible with these kind of hydraulic systems and pressures. That's a PIM kind of data, and it can easily be handled by something like Sanity as well. I think the PIM, what makes very often is about the integrations and the ecosystem around it. Like the data part is maybe quite trivial in a sense. What you're completely right about is that when you're sitting there with like your PIM, and then you have these IDs that people have. Let's say talk about Tecovas. It's a Western style kind of cowboy hats and boots out of Austin, Texas. They use Sanity for exactly like you said. Their way they frame it is like for storytelling. Like we have our ERP system, we have Shopify that has some of that like data. I think they moved the Sanity to be the master system, but that's beside the point. It's still, your point still stands that when they now come up with, oh, we need to be able to ship, like they figure out like the pulse we need, the value we need to deliver is product launches, like keeping the store, the brand feel fresh, having a steady pulse of like a changing life of the site. It's festival season, we have festival boots, festival wear, is wedding season, it's like everything is white, everything. So now, of course, coming up with that is maybe, I don't know, it's not easy, but it's like technically it seems easy. Like someone creative comes up with that. And then if you now don't build a system around that, now you have all of these chores. Like now we have to have a designers build a new front page with all white colorways, and you have to. So in the past, they would do 2 releases a year. So what Sanity allowed them to do was to do the headless thing, which was model this as data. Okay, we have a campaign that's based on the colorways, and this is the storytelling around it. And then we have a boot, and this boot has certain features, and then we'll tell the story about these features and call out a specific kind of, because of course people are not experts on cowboy boots initially, and you want to inspire them to want 5, not 2, right? So you need to tell them about the differentiation. So they were doing that, and all that ends up in some kind of data modeling you need to do, because you want it to be reusable. So now the team, like you talked about earlier, it's about autonomy, because now we built a system, and it's built around what this business decided mattered to the business, and now everything is centered around that. That's the core of content modeling, right? So now if I say I want a new campaign, it's colorway oriented. This is the creative content, these are the pictures, the text, this is the colorway, and now you have a smart filter, and suddenly this campaign always shows white things. So now it's completely automated, and that's one example. Like they were coming up with loads of stuff like that. So you said like it connects the engineers with the creatives and builds, like instead of doing one-off, they build systems and reusable processes. And then what we bring to the table there is, of course, this ability to then automate and integrate deeply into their other systems, which is beyond the typical headless, where they now build automated. They had a very integrated team, so taking their merchandisers and their engineers, putting them together in a small team aligned around these very straightforward, very simple, clear goals. And then they would just collaborate in figuring out how to build these automated pipelines where the merchandiser are only thinking about the business driving aspects, putting that into the pipeline, and then now the data drives all of these other pipelines, and everything is updated, shipped at the right time, and that just happens. So now they can do a product release one every month. So that's the 12x. Yeah. Makes sense?
Wow. And inside Sanity, did you develop a similar workflow engine, for lack of a better term, like what you would have in a traditional PIM system, whereby you have stages or stage gates of enriched product and data enrichment before it can be authorized to go to the next stage, and before it can be finally authorized to be disseminated and distributed to the endpoints or to the channels where this data needs to go to? It might be going to one channel, might be a marketplace, one channel might be social, one channel might be a website or websites. Those websites might be regionalized and localized in terms of content, in terms of language, in terms of all these different things. And so usually within a PIM system, one of the things that is powerful about a really good PIM system is that you do have these workflows, stage gates, automatic assignments to people in the team to do their part of the contribution to the process. You have authorization layers, you have tracking, you have version control where you can roll back and you can roll forward. You have all these enablement capabilities and logic and rules that says, okay, cool, if in the name of this product we have a color that we can identify, we maybe automatically add that as a structured data attribute to this product so that it then can be used as a facet or a filter in an e-commerce platform, for example. And so oftentimes it is these automations, it's these rules, it's these workflows that add power to a PIM system database that allows these workflows to be created within an organization to make them more efficient in their processes, and to help ensure that steps do not get skipped along the way, so that when product data is finally released to the market, that it is a minimum level, a minimum standard before it gets released and is representing the brand in the market, or it is representing the brand to a B2B buyer that is then going to resell that product to somebody else. And so you need a minimum level of enrichment so that buyer of that product has all the collateral they need. It could be a PDF download, it could be a set of assets, it could be a set of zip files, it could be a drawing, it could be almost anything. It doesn't have to just be romance copy or descriptive copy. It could be almost any asset related to a product that is needed by the market or the eventual buyer of the good. And that those workflows make these businesses more efficient by definition, because you are bringing consistency to what they're doing. Instead of it just falling on one individual to manage that whole process, now we're putting it through a very defined and very, I don't want to use the word strict because it sounds like creatives wouldn't want to work within a strict system, but it creates guardrails is probably a better term to use, and it feels like Sanity does some elements of that too.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the framing of like feeling safe as you work, like feeling that you can. So I think, for example, version control is an amazing example of that, where I can do whatever I want to do and feel safe that I can roll back. That is maybe part of a guardrail system, but I can think of it as like I'm creating a safe space for myself to experiment, and I can feel good about that. And once I feel good, I can commit and then go. And then if your company has complex approval processes, we are. So our experience is like we have building blocks like tasks and comments and of course all kinds of triggers. And our experience is that mid to smaller size companies have very informal processes and would to have pretty lightweight, like just an approval, stuff like that. And that's of course ready to go. The larger organization like AT&T is one of our customers, and they have an incredibly complicated pipeline workflow. I don't know how much I can go into it, but it's like incredibly complicated. And the power of Sanity there is that's possible to build. Like we have no customizations for them. They have done all of that on our platform, but it's completely tailored to how they think. And that was part of our initial kind of first sticky note on the as we were framing this product was like, I hate coming in as a consultant back in the day when I was an agency. I hate coming to a company. It's this thing, we call it like the new thing challenge. Like when you're coming with a new product, everyone is sad. Like in a big organization, for some reason, you did all this amazing work for them and everyone was sad. And so we thought when we did our first big Sanity project, when it was an internal tool, we said, let's figure out how to come up with a product solution for them. We talk to all the senior leaders, and then when they get it, when they launch, everyone is happy. How do we do that? Of course, part of that was about aligning with everyone, talking with everyone, making sure there was small recognitions of everyone, like not only talking to the senior leadership. But another part of that was that we wanted to be able to shape the product we gave to the team, so like their CMS, shape that to how they were thinking. So there will be no if you're an architecture agency, traditionally in the CMS, you'd be like, you have to create a new page, and then you have to use the building template. Nothing of that makes any sense. I'm a PR person in an architecture agency. Why isn't the button called new building or new project, right? So we thought very, very deeply about that, and about how companies can build exactly that workflow that they need that makes sense for their organization. And I think one thing I would love for some of our most successful customers are very preoccupied with automation. They are not thinking about how can I give my team the most expressive, like the most number of buttons, like the Webflow style, Squarespace style, like I can do everything. Who cares about everything? Like if you don't know what moves your business, like think about that and then make those affordances for your team. Like make it be about what the business is about. And then automate everything else. And it's very often about removing a lot of those kind of explicit, let's call it like there is guardrails, there is security, but it's not about like maybe a lot of clicking and talking together and coordinating on Slack. It's about, this is now marked ready to go. Now a workflow start that automatically translates this. We have an AI Assist, which is a tool that can do work with the kind of large language models. We can do complicated. It's not just about writing, it's about doing tasks in your content. And right now it's not triggered automatically, but that will be integrated into the workflow system. So now like when something is ready to go, the translations will be made and it will be shipped into the next kind of part of them. But in terms of ready to go swim lane workflow systems, that's something we probably should invest more in, to be honest. Like some people ask for more out of the box stuff, and it makes sense in some contexts.
Makes sense. And this whole headless quote unquote revolution, it has taken many different forms, right? Some people will engineer, for example, let's say they're running Shopify as their e-commerce platform. They will use Shopify's native front end, and they will try to integrate a headless CMS into that, and using their developers, they will plumb content out of a headless CMS that's designed specifically for that into, say, for example, into native blog pages on Shopify or into native CMS pages on Shopify, but they won't want to use the tooling of Shopify. They'll want to use the tooling that is a headless CMS to generate the content and create the page types and create the reusable components and elements, etc., and then plumb that content into Shopify. And then in other instances, they will want to have a CMS system that they can plumb the commerce components into instead, where they'll say, look, we want to actually do most of our work in the CMS itself. Then we'll plumb the commerce components into that. We'll plumb the catalog components. We'll plumb the data into there. We'll plumb the checkout experience and the connection to ShopPay into the CMS experience. And we'll use Shopify more as a headless integrator integrated
right?
in with our as a commerce engine, right? It manages the promotions, manages the catalog, manages the pricing, manages all those different things, and then we have all-in-one systems that kind of bring this together, right? We've got both native headless front-end platforms like Vue.js and all sorts of different front-end as a service storefronts that then we plumb data from our headless commerce system, or what can function as a headless commerce system, and our headless CMS system. We will take data from both of those systems. We will plumb those together and route those into our headless front-end layer, our display layer, and we will display that in exactly the way that we want. So in that sense, the headless commerce system and the headless CMS are more like just the databases of their respective types of content and data, and then we're going to weave them together into a headless front-end experience that creates exactly the brand experience and the workflow for the viewer, for the visitor, for the user, for lack of a better term. I don't really like the word user, but
We often use the
I don't
audience,
know.
as a general term for
The audience.
Yeah.
Exactly, the audience. We are creating a user journey for that audience, for that particular audience, that we think will resonate, that we think will tell our story the best, as well as, especially if we're trying to sell stuff, then we have to weave together the content and commerce journey in such a way that makes sense for what the audience wants to achieve when they arrive on our web property. There's many different approaches to this, and I've seen it sliced and diced a million different ways, but because you don't provide out of the box, as I understand it anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, because you don't provide a storefront layer or a display layer as part of your platform, they will need to figure out how and where they want to plumb your data and information, and how and where they want to display that information.
That is exactly right. So for the example of Shopify, we provide an out-of-the-box two-way integration. So exactly what you talked about there, like having even if you today have your products inside Shopify, you can, with very few clicks, set up like a two-way connection, which like will bring all your product data into Sanity. If you want to, it can be two-way master, like you can change it in Sanity and we'll ship it back, or you can you can decide where you want the master to be. Now you can, exactly like you said, now you can start adding stuff. So if you want to enrich the storytelling around your products, now you have every possible ability. Now you have the best, and of course this is why people started talking about composable rather than headless, because maybe that's more the value, that we can compose different systems together. I picked the e-commerce system I want. I picked the content editor, authoring and workflow system I want, and then I picked my front end. And maybe I use the Shopify, the Liquid, or the Hydrogen, or I use Next.js. And we have all kinds of customers like that. And it's funny to see how, like, it goes from like small, I assume they are small, like Bagu, they create shopping bags, reusable shopping bags, amazing different patterns. They use Sanity and Shopify together in a very beautiful, simple website, using exactly that approach that you outlined, where you add some storytelling and some rich things in Sanity. I don't think they might not even pay us. It's probably within the free or very cheap tier. And that's super happy about that. And then on the other side, you have someone like Skims, who is like a behemoth of e-commerce. And they're using Sanity in a very similar way. They're using Shopify with Sanity at like an immense scale in terms of volume, of course. And they are able to now build exactly the user experience they want. The beautiful site is beautiful to navigate, and the way to find and discover products that are related and stuff that's all powered by that structured content kind of approach. And now, of course, they have that freedom to do whatever they come up with in terms of how to optimize their business and discover great ways to inspire their audiences.
And how do you, when you're first talking to a customer, how do you help them in their mind? So let's say they run Shopify and they're looking at the 150 different page builder apps that are available in the App Store that plug into Shopify. You one-click install. I pay my $20 a month or whatever it is, and then I go into my WYSIWYG editor in Shopify for blog pages or info pages or product pages or whatever it might be, and these page builders, for lack of a better term, kind of insert some of their WYSIWYG capabilities as an overlay inside the Shopify UI. So the native Shopify UI, log into admin, do all the admin things that I need to do to create a page, to create a blog article, whatever it is, but I have effectively some superpowers, some additional powers given to me by these platforms that allow me more flexibility, allow me to have, instead of just having standard WYSIWYG, almost like a word editor, which is what the out-of-the-box stuff is. I can create bullet points, and I can bold, and I can do some basic text formatting and layouts and that sort of stuff in the native Shopify functionality. But the moment that I want to get more clever than that, the moment that I want to get more creative than that, the moment that I want to create an accordion menu, or the moment that I want to create these UI components that help me tell my story better, the moment that I want to create these highly unique layouts of a specific page or a specific content block, or that I want to give a certain background or whatever it might be, I start to need some superpowers that go well beyond either native Shopify or even just a standard page builder that plugs into Shopify. I need to go from mild-mannered Clark Kent to Superman now. And I need superpowers as a content team that's focused heavily on creative storytelling and brand. I've now reached the limits of what those inbuilt tooling systems can provide. And that's where it probably is justified to say, look, I've probably outgrown those now. I've probably outgrown what those can do. And now I need something like a Sanity. That's in terms of the growth curve of where a brand gets to in their life cycle or their journey, where they would say to themselves, yeah, I've outgrown this. I now think I need something more powerful. And that feels like they've almost graduated, right? They've graduated from inbuilt tools,
it should be a day to
plug-in based tools to something. They realize, geez, yeah, exactly. We need more. We want more. We expect more. We've got now 3 designers in-house. We've got 3 copywriters in-house. We've got more complex needs as a business, not just from a creative perspective, but from a workflow perspective. And it feels like that is when we need dedicated tooling for the job.
Yeah, I think if you are like, my father is running a small gallery in a small town in Norway, and he asked me, should I use Sanity? I'm like, no, you should not use Sanity. You should use Squarespace, right? Like, you should be, like having
Squarespace I use even for my business. Exactly. My company website is on Squarespace. It's perfect because I'm not a designer.
Yeah, and also if your level of chores, if you can upload, let's say you want a map of, it's a photo gallery. So like maybe you want a map of everywhere like your photos are taken. So you have 75 pictures for sale right now. So you can upload those maps, maybe make a screen capture from Google Maps, and that's fine. That's manageable, and there will be 3 more pictures this year, and it will be fine. So like at that level, when your level of chores, there's no value in automation or reusability, that's fine. And it goes also a little bit with your ambition level. I feel like sometimes people invest, what I see a lot of people investing very late in this or lack imagination in terms of, because people have a high tolerance for chores and busy work, and they believe that it's actually needed because maybe they don't have developers in-house to tell them, actually, you're bleeding money. You just don't know it. You feel you're efficient, but most of the work you're doing has 0 value. So I think if there is there are certainly use cases where you can and should go with the built-in stuff and the stuff that it like requires you to do the work every time. Is what I like something. Like page builder oriented tools that aren't principal, like there probably are page builder tools that are better than the ones I'm thinking of, but where they are very manual, like you said, it's like a Word with some components. Then yeah, you have to do everything. Oh, now I decided I want a selling outdoor kind of wear, and I decided that we need this kind of block of visualizations for like temperature ranges and like use cases. Is it waterproof? We would like to be people to be able to eyeball that in
technical
in
fabrics and all those things.
You look at the jacket and it takes you 10 seconds. Is it waterproof? No. Okay, let's keep going. And we have a customer called Ether out of LA. It's beautiful kind of outdoor brand, and they did that, made some beautiful kind of factual illustrations and powered by Sanity. And they could, of course, if it was very small and they were not ambitious, they could just upload small pictures, have a designer in Illustrator make those, and then. But they are ambitious and they want it to be repeatable, and then they have a new collection every season, and of course they will be able to. Then now there is 2 seconds for someone to just fill in the ideal temperature range. Like there's 7 fields, and now we have a beautiful box on every. And now that can go into, like you said, like that. Now that can power all kinds of things. things later downstream. They can be a smart collection in a campaign. It can be automatically seasonal filtering on the front page. Now suddenly, like, it's summer, so we take away the too thick jackets. So I think there's, for a lot of your listeners, probably also thinking about at least looking into how automation and more optimal workflows can help them early on before they drown in busy work. Because I've seen some horror stories when I talk to people, and they have been for years believing that they needed to do all this work. But yes, it is everything you said is true still, and then there is a place for all of these tools.
There certainly is, and I think as a business grows, usually by definition, as their catalogs grow, as the complexity of the products within their catalogs grow,
and the velocity,
as
I think, is very often a driver.
Yeah.
Even if you only have, let's say you're mostly selling on Instagram, it's like a brand-oriented store that has, you're a Finnish apparel brand, you have eight products at any given time, but you are iterating, you are figuring out new models, you're testing out new pitches every day.
Or if you're Temu or Shein, then obviously you're releasing thousands of products. And so the reality is,
then it's so obvious you need a system. But I think sometimes even the volume can be about velocity, even though your actual kind of footprint in a given moment in time is pretty small. I think one thing to think about, like I'm thinking, I'm in Norway. Amazon isn't really present here in any real way. They are because they ship fast. That's their thing, right? So that's why, and here they don't. So no one cares. So what happens in Norway is that actually having compromising brutal logistics is the unlock. It's why you choose a certain retailer, even overpriced sometimes. Yes. This leaves these retailers the space to actually be really lazy about the customer experience. Like they can be, these stores I'm using, to be honest, in Norway, like the big box stores that has loads of different products, the brand stores are different, but the big box stores are terrible. They are so bad. And it's so much manual labor. I have, like, in my garage, I have 4 different rear wheels for mountain bikes because they were all slightly wrong, and I can't just figure out how to figure it out in that particular store. And I think that's dangerous for them because the good logistics is being commoditized. At some point, these are companies just selling that, so that will end up being their bane. So they try this at their peril. But I think as a customer, I feel what it really holds me back. Like, I'm a PC gamer. I don't upgrade my graphics card right now because I can't figure out which one is compatible with my PC. I have the money, I have the inclination, but I just can't be bothered to figure it out. Now, this retailer I bought my PC from is a Norwegian company. They know the PC I have. They can compute whether I can, like, what cards are compatible, but they don't. So I'm not buying. It's $1,500 to $2,000 purchase I'm not making. And I think that's a thing for retail. It's very often like that storytelling. We think about it as an inspirational thing, as something that kind of is fuzzy and warm. In reality, it's about taking away that doubt. It's about, it has that texture, the textile is the way you like it. It has that mobility that you like. These trousers are waterproof. Like, I'll tell you all this.
This is the fitment. This is the application.
Exactly. Getting you to the decision to buy as fast as possible. And I think that's where why you as a high volume or high velocity retailer should be really worrying about this, is that if you are not doing this, I don't have the data for this, but as a consumer, I'm pretty sure if the shipping is right, now nominal mostly, everyone's getting to have the same shipping. If the price is within reason, the prices are also getting steep because of price sites. They are also just leveling out. So the thing you have left to differentiate on is the destination. I'm going to your site because you can figure out my rear wheel from my bike, or you can unlock my PC card and you can sell me the extra power supply that I probably need that I can't figure out myself. Now I'm buying from you because I can't be bothered. It's maybe $220, $200 cheaper somewhere else. Maybe, probably not, but I won't be bothered at some point. So I think that's why this is incredibly valuable and critical for people to figure out. And that's why we went from being a company that was mostly about just creating beautiful, innovative visual experiences. That was actually our passion. And we were being discovered by e-commerce that were thinking like this. So we were first by RBI, then later Shopify came, and Shopify actually came to us and told us, so many of our customers are using your product to gain those superpowers. So it's then we invested more in those integrations. But in reality, we have been discovered by e-commerce and now, of course, investing a lot in that. And one example of things we learn from our customers is we see when you get to a certain volume, you have like huge traffic. And the way to scale traffic in this day and age is, of course, caching. So you cache stuff globally, but we also see that our customers are doing real-time merchandising, because you are doing, like, you have a sale, like you're Kim Kardashian, you just posted something on Instagram, millions of people are coming in. Now those surfaces that you are pushing your product on are incredibly valuable right now. There's super high traffic, and you don't want to be selling something that's already sold out or definitely will be sold out. So people are working hard to now modify their content really fast while it's also being served at high volumes. And of course, caching doesn't support that in general. It's very hard. So one of our recent product launches was what we call the high frequency CDN. It's basically an ability for you to pay a little bit extra to prioritize the freshness of content even during these high load events. And then being able to then, because of these APIs and automations we talked about, that is possible with headless content systems, you can automate a lot of that merchandising. You can look at trading trends and change your structural offers accordingly in real time. And we will be able to reflect that. And even if you want to, we can push those changes to even open websites to millions of customers. And that's why we are moving away from talking about ourselves we don't say headless so much. It's like it's everything is headless now. It's, of course, if it's not headless, it's so old-fashioned. Like, why are we even talking about it? But we are talking about this as a kind of content operating system, because we are this fabric that connects, like you said, like connects your ERP system, connects your PIM, or even replaces your PIM, connects all of that with your team, and becomes this kind of control center for automation and optimal workflows, and then is able to deliver that at scale, at volume, at velocity, at like huge globally to all kinds of channels that you deem relevant. So I think that's where we are, our thinking is right now.
Love it. And what's next for you guys? What's on your radar for the next 12, 18 months? What's functionality? What are your customers asking for that maybe you don't do yet today? Or what are gaps in the market that you see? And then secondarily, how do you guys make your money? You're a SaaS platform, for lack of a better term, because you're all hosted in the cloud and it's all on your data infrastructure and back end.
Yeah.
So how do you charge? How do you make your money? And what's next on your radar from a functional perspective?
Yeah, we're a subscription service. In one sense, like it's a platform as a service. You only pay for your API, kind of the complexity of your setup and a certain aspect of your volume, your usage. And we try to be, it's a very generous, free and low tier offering. So if you're like a smaller company, you're just getting started, we're trying to give it away without cannibalizing our enterprise business, because we really love the smaller, we learn so much from and collaborate closely with all of these smaller actors, even though that's not the bread and butter, but it's like really interesting and it's a passion for us. So if you want to check it out, it's very cheap and easy and free. And then when you scale up, we're there. You know, we work for some of the biggest brands and we're ready for you. In terms of the future, I think one of the things we started out with this expressivity. I was really about like remarkable experiences. That was where my mental space are. We deliver on that. Now I'm thinking a lot about, we worked with making Sanity a more creative tool, because a lot of CMSs is where you go to implement content. So we recently launched Sanity Create, which is like a blank kind of canvas style creative experience, but it actually is able to automatically map your content into structured content using AI. So you can work in an unstructured fashion, and like the stuff that's coming out, I don't know if I can talk about it, but I just saw a demo because it's just started working, where you can basically work free form. What we did look at was how people work with how the final drafts coming out of content teams look. And they are full of instructions, like this is like the main quote, and this is the call to action, and put this in like a box about the platforms being used, stuff like that. So we just took that format, figure out how can we like interpret that and then implement that automatically, just so that now you can just create the content intuitively as a team, and then the whole part of implementing just goes away, which is to be incredibly powerful. That's already shipped, and the implementation is coming. And then we are working on making that whole kind of team collaboration aspect, like being the place for creativity and implementation and operational matters, having that be like a single space. That's where we see our biggest, like our most successful customers are building with Sanity. We're trying to make more of that kind of part of the product, whereas now people have to build a lot of it themselves.
Wow. Wow, very exciting times. And look, it sounds like you're on the path to world domination. So
Yes,
I
I
love
think
it.
so.
I love people doing innovative things. I love people that are thinking outside the box, that have done something that's never been done before, identifies a real genuine need and problem and challenge in our industry, and then sets about to solve it, initially internally in your case, and then externalizes that to the world. Look, I will always get behind and be a cheerleader for people that are creating what I like to think of as commerce enablement technology or experience enablement technology. And I very much see Sanity fitting into that experience enablement space. And
Well,
digital experience enablement space is probably a better way to contextualize that. Congratulations on getting to where you are. Congratulations on Sanity's it's a very well-known name in the world. Despite that you're based in the Nordics, you're punching above your weight, and I
our
think that's really
headquarters
cool.
is in San Francisco, and all of our capital is in San Francisco. To be honest, but yeah, you're right. Like
Sure, of
we're
course.
hailing from Norway, and I'm in Norway. Yeah.
Love it, love it. And look, I spent almost 30 years in New Zealand, and also a small remote country that in many respects from a tech perspective punches above its weight. So
Sure.
I definitely have an appreciation and respect from smaller remote regions really getting stuck in on the global stage. I absolutely love that. It's almost like an underdog punching above its weight, and I always love that story. It's a very powerful story. Now listen, an hour, almost an hour has absolutely flown by. It's been a great discussion. You're clearly passionate about what you're doing. You're clearly passionate about your why and what you want to do in this world, the splash that you want to make, the dent you want to make in the universe. And I absolutely love that. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question. Any question you like can be personal or professional. And I'm going to try to get this right. Simen SVALE from Sanity, what is your question for me today?
One of the challenges for us is that people are complacent in the e-commerce space, and you've spoken to a lot of people in the space. And I wonder how you would, if you saw an e-commerce company who are mired in useless work, in useless labor, in routine work, inefficient processes, how can I talk to them in a way that feels respectful and inspiring and unlocking that expectation for them?
Great question, and I think you're 100% right. I think oftentimes it's not that they are necessarily complacent. I think that many brands, and especially now that I work so heavily in the B2B world, they're coming more from a place of ignorance than complacency, meaning they don't know what's possible. They don't know what's out there. They don't live in this world every day. They live in their world every day. They live in their product. They live in their customers' world. They live in the conversations that they're having with their customers. They're trying to provide solutions to their market, and they are not living online in the same way that you and I are, right? As a senior solution architect that's been doing this for over 20 years and lives in this space, I keep my finger on the pulse of the latest developments across commerce, across content, across ERPs and CRMs and CDPs and every component of the digital stack. I have to, by the very nature of what I do, I have to stay up with that. I have to stay current. And I like to joke, but it's not so much of a joke, that if I took 6 months off and then came back, the whole everything about our ecosystem would I'd have to start again. I'd have to spend a few days getting caught up on everything that's happened in our industry, because that's how fast it's moving, particularly in the age of AI. I am a big fan of show, don't tell. I'm a big fan of let me show you. And oftentimes this, especially in the B2B e-commerce world, oftentimes it takes the form of, hey, let's grab a bit of your product, a bit of your content, let's shunt it into one of these e-commerce platforms, and let's show you the experience that your customers can have. Let's show you the experience your sales teams can have in the back end to manage quotes and all these different things. So it really largely comes down to show, don't tell. And if you can do a really good demo and say, look, you really need to see this. It's useless for me to describe it, because until you can visualize it, especially when you're dealing with creatives, especially when you're dealing with designers and marketers and copywriters, it's even more important to show versus tell for those types of people, because they need to be able to see it and visualize. They need to be able to imagine themselves inside these tools doing their daily work and making it more efficient and easy and, more importantly, fun for them to do their job. Because oftentimes, if you look at Photoshop and some of the other tools that are out there in the market, they are expressly designed for creatives. And they're designed for them to be able to bring efficiency to the creative process. But when it comes to getting that creativity out into the world, that is not designed around a creative mindset. It's designed around a technical mindset. And this is where I think something like Sanity helps to bridge the gap. It bridges the gap between the creative and the technical. And that's where I think your superpower will lie.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you plug something?
Of course.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I spent some time now. We are working on a series of films because I think you're spot on. That's probably exactly the answer. And sometimes it's a bit hard because every company is different. So figuring out what kind of would move someone, it can be hard. So what we are doing is I'm traveling around to some of our most successful customers, and I'm making documentaries. So I'm spending a week with them and looking through how do they do content operations. I interview their merchandisers, I interview their developers and their CTOs. And I had and the first one, the pilot episode is finished, and I would love for your viewers to go and see for themselves. And maybe if we can put a link in the show notes, because I would love for this. It is completely new. It has 160 views. Like the trailer has 50,000, so it's like clearly demand there, but it's just out right now as we talk. But it's an attempt to do that. Let me show you what one company is doing, and maybe it can help you imagine what you could do, which is different, probably. Make sense?
It's inspirational, and I love that. Inspirational and aspirational. I like that. I love that. And in terms of, I will drop your LinkedIn link into the show notes. I will link the Sanity link in the show notes. Other than that, how do you like people to get a hold of you if they want to have a conversation about CMS, content, creative, and their journey as a brand?
Yeah, no, I feel I'm in the Sanity Slack, community Slack. So if you join the Sanity community Slack and you at Simen, Simen, I'll be there.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Simen. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a ton. You're super passionate about what you do, and this was an easy and fun conversation for me as a host, and I hope it was enjoyable for you.
Yeah, it was
and
really
I can't
fun.
wait to
Thank
speak
you.
to you again soon.
Thank
you so much. Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.